I'll try and kind of get right after so it doesn't take too long. This may be the beginning of the best discourse on the rights of men that there's ever been. We'll just see if it works out that way. In the gospel accounts of Jesus' ministry, it talks about people coming to him to challenge him on what he thought about divorce. Moses gave us a writ of divorcement, and Jesus' answer was, from the beginning it was not so. From the beginning it was not so. So how then was it from the beginning? So then what Jesus does is he relates how it was from the beginning, that a man and a woman leave their father and mother, they join together, become one flesh, become one, and that's a marriage. And from the beginning it was so that men and women married. It didn't take any state to be developed in order to make rules about it. It didn't take any licensing or any kind of permission from anyone. And it didn't take any kind of ceremonies or any kind of religious observances. It just took them choosing each other and joining to each other, and then they become one flesh, and then also, of course, having children. Remember, Laura surprised me by saying that she thought becoming one flesh meant they become the baby flesh. So like the new man that they become is the child, which is probably not really what I think exactly. So continuing on a little bit, are and do. What men are is a man, and what they do is the persona or the person. So from the beginning men are, but not at the beginning, but further on after the beginning, then men began to do. So what they do is not what they are. So I think we can say so. So men are created and equal. Of course, we're proving that. You'll have it proved here if you don't believe it yet. That men are equal in what they are and whom they are, and then they're completely unequal in what they do. They all do different things. They all have different things. But if you take away the do and the have, then what you have is men who are equal. And next line here that I'd written: God does not respect persons. God does not value men by what they do, but from the beginning values men, and that value is love, and that value is full. If we begin with the phrase "God loves you," here's what we can discover about men's rights. What we can further establish and clarify and perhaps prove: that men have the right not to be harmed or forced. We might be able to do that here. And it probably, your entire reform and your entire, whoever you are, your entire reform and your entire well-doing and worldview and understanding righteousness and the rights of men probably hinges on whether you'll believe me when I tell you that love is not feelings. Feelings are secondary and are caused by love. Cause and effect are not ever the same thing. The cause and the effect are different things. The effect comes from the cause, but it's not the cause. So we don't get, love is not caused for us by feeling something about someone, and doesn't reduce or, I don't know if it can, it's hard to say that right now. It's hard to say that it doesn't increase or decrease by our feelings, but it really is true. We'll kind of find out why in a minute. Well, not even a minute, in a second, because of the definition of love. Really, the primary thing, love is a full evaluation of the subject of its love. When someone loves someone, they value them as fully valuable. And feelings and other things are built on the foundation of that measure. So you choose your measure, and you measure them, and you judge them, you value them fully, and you therefore love them, because you have no diminishment in their value in your judgment. How you see them and perceive them, think about them, whatever, all of that, it is based on evaluation. I don't know. My sentence got to be a little bit difficult. I couldn't figure out quite how to finish it. I had different ideas of words to say that didn't fit quite right. So if God loves a man, that means he values him fully. If God loves another man, it means he values that one fully. If he values both of them fully and they're both men, that means he values them equally. His valuation is full and it's equal for each of them because he values them full. And he doesn't respect persons because his judgment of their value doesn't come from what they do and the roles they play and the things they put on, things that they occupy themselves with. He's not concerned with what you do and what your job is and any of that stuff. He's concerned with your value as a man, and he's concerned that you don't reduce your value as a man by harming someone. So how do you know what the right of man is, rights of men are, what the right of man is? It's simpler than it seems. There are more things added in to our confusion than what we really need to understand it from the fundamental. It doesn't matter what the list of individual ways that it works out are, particularly. It's not by the list, and it's not by an incomplete list, and we're not trying to figure out the list. What you need to understand about what's right, the right of men, is that it's right for them not to be harmed. And if they're sovereign and not in a persona-based organization or endeavors that value them according and have tasks for them and value them according to what they do. If we're not basing it in the respect of the persons or the personas, then we are basing our respect for that in that they are as men, what they are, not what they do. What they do can't change what they are. So forming states, forming crowns, and doing all kinds of different things that have broken and continually assailed the sovereignty of men and put people in the position where they behave as if they can control men, or more often put them in the position, have them put themselves in the position where they believe they should be controlled. Those are persona things, and those are not from the beginning. From the beginning, it was not so that you were in a collective. From the beginning, it's not so that you were claimed to be in a collective and claimed to be acted on by that collective's rulers. That was not from the beginning. That was something that men did. It wasn't something they are. They didn't start as rulers. God didn't choose any rulers. He chose and measures men by their value as men, and does not respect their personas. Doesn't base any of those things on the person and what the roles are that they take on. The activities of men, the things that men put together, were not from the beginning. They come later. From the beginning, it was not so. Was spoken by Jesus, aiming at that divorcement that Moses allowed for, and men putting away their wives because they're selfish. From the beginning, it was not so. So what from the beginning was so, that men would give their lives, and women would give their lives into that, and they would surrender that for what they're receiving. You would trade yourself for them, and then you would become one. And from the beginning, it was so that men and women would join and become one. What they did later doesn't change that. It can change it, enforce it, and act on it, but it isn't the basis of what was real. What was real in the beginning is that a man and woman would join and become one. The rest of it was extra, what men did and what men devised, artifices that they devised, systems of controlling people that they devised. So concerning the right of men, the valuation of men is that they're full, and the things that devalue them are things that men do that come after. God does not participate in those things, nor does he respect those. God will not respect a ruler's attempt to rule or a slave's attempt to be enslaved. He doesn't respect the rules, but as a man he values them full. Your full value is what he respects and believes in and cares about. That's why he doesn't approve of slavery, because you value yourself to put yourself in the property control of another man is removing yourself from your liberty and sovereignty that he gave you as a man, and is something that you do later. It's a persona thing that you would do, and God can't respect that persona. He's not foolish enough to judge people by standards is probably okay to say. Certainly not by men's standards, and so every time someone says something like that, I go, oh, it's mysterious, we can't understand it. No, we can understand it fine. What men do, what they get together, what they plan, what they devise, and what they come up with does not affect God's judgment, because it's persona things. God measures each man fully and on into the infinity of mankind, if it could be considered that, on all out to the encapsulating every member of mankind that's ever existed. God loves them fully and therefore values them fully and equally, so men are equal in their creation. Jefferson was right. And the meaning of your rights, the alienation that he said that the rights of men are unalienable, not be able to be put at loan. You can't loan your body out. Why he came to that conclusion was probably really close to what I mentioned about the persona thing, and from the beginning it was not so. In the beginning there were no slaves and no masters. Slaves and masters are something that men did after their persona things that they created and devised, and oftentimes will kill people if they don't fit their, if they refuse to fit into their plans or their devices like that. So what, Joe? Are you saying that God doesn't respect a king? Well, yeah, I think I pretty much said that. It's a persona thing. God can't respect it. So why would God expect that there should be a king and a subject? From the beginning, it was not so that there were kings and subjects, or there were presidents and voters, or citizens. Emperors and citizens really is what goes together. Slaves, masters and slaves, emperors and citizens, kings and subjects, all the same thing. All with personas laying down, either by being forced or by agreeing to it, laying down the fullness of their life and their sovereignty in order to be owned by a man, in order to be benefited by him. You trade your righteousness for the gain of it. Or if you're forced, then trading your righteousness is destroyed for the gain of the master. When he destroys or steals any bit of your sovereignty, immediately that force is a property crime force and is evil. God loves man, doesn't respect the roles they put on. So to them, they're all equal and the same, and he will always treat them all and judge them all, value them all fully. And equally. Men are roles are different. What people have and what people do are different. Men are all the same. They're all valued the same. So when you will value men and not devalue them and allow, in your view, some kind of respective person's idea that their persona is not good enough, and so that then things can be done to them. If you maintain their full value and agree with God, then you won't allow for any of those things. You won't respect persons, and you won't value men by what they do or what they have. You'll agree with that which from the beginning was right and righteous, that men are full and they're sovereign and they choose what to do with their lives. And you'll leave them free from force, and you'll leave them free from you sanctioning a force being used by someone else on them, because you'll value their security, that it's right for them not to be harmed, and eventually, if you don't believe me when I say it right now, eventually you'll realize that forcing them is harming them, because it's insisting that they be worked on in the persona doing or having place. And from the beginning, it was not so that those things were real. They can't be righteousness if they don't match the righteousness of the creation as it was at the start. If it doesn't leave men fully valued, but it puts them into a subjection one to another, a higher value and a lower value, when that happens, that's in the place that God does not respect, and the place that we should not respect, and we shouldn't value that. It's okay for people to take roles in things as long as they recognize that that's not them. That's tasking and according to the strategy and plan of an organization. But if it devalues men, if men are devalued in any sense in that process and thought to be less or more than their compatriots or whatever, then that's unrighteous, and it can't be right. So everything that we would list in the rights of men can be understood and recognized that it has to do with that it's right for them not to be harmed in all these different aspects and specific ways to look at that. A list of them. It all comes down to that they should never be harmed, and it's right for them to be left alone and not to be forced for their liberty, for their life, for their liberty, or their property to be harmed. It has to be force that comes. It has to be an action of force. That action of force cannot be right, because the men are free. Not because of a political thing. Political is not from the beginning. Everything political happened after and was constructed. So it's not a political thing. It's an apolitical thing. Political is abuse to the sovereignty of men all of the time. It's always one side trying to force the other, one man trying to force the other, and it therefore is always an unrighteous endeavor when they're working for that force. They're doing something to someone who, at their nature, is designed to be and still believed to be by God and by righteous men to be free from your forcing. If you don't know what a man did to be guilty and require force to stop him, to protect his victim, or to set his victim right, if you don't know the specifics of what he did, you can never devalue them in base your judgment on what they do or what they say or what they have. You can't judge them because they're poor. You can't judge them because they take certain actions, unless that action is a harm that impacts another one. Then it's right for them to be forced, and it's also right for you to disagree with what they've done. But otherwise, what they do as sovereigns has nothing to do with you and isn't your business. And if you don't know specifically what they've done to be in the position where there's a controversy, where a judge can come between them, if you don't know what that is, then there's never a time where it's safe for you or right for you to devalue your judgment of that man. When you know, it's also still important to behave yourself rightly. You know, if you know someone's guilty, that doesn't mean that it's now you can have a bunch of fun and condemn them and everything. If you're going to be behaving as a judge, then you'd better be behaving as a judge that's working to set things right in their situation. And if you're not in that situation, then it's best to not behave as a judge and to not make a verdict. Your verdict won't do anything except change you and can make you guilty, because you pronounced a verdict on someone whom you're not in the process of judging, and so you're judging them as guilty and condemned and less because you decided to. You can't maintain righteousness doing that. So you always leaning and inclining toward justifying unless you know specifics. If you don't know specifics, then there's no good way for you to, within your mind and your heart and your ways of seeing things, there's no good way for you to judge anyone as less than another or more than another, because you will take it from what men are into what they do, and then you'll be respecting persons and disagreeing with God and disagreeing with righteousness. What's right is what was from the beginning. So, if you picture, if 10 families have actually been, have been actually formed, and they have their little farms or whatever, and someone's going to come from another place and start telling them what to do. Why would they put up with that? From the beginning, it was so that no one came and told you what to do and expected you to serve them. Who are you to come around here telling me that I'm part of your group and that you're going to rule over me? You're no one to do that. That's why that stuff was done with murder. No one subjects themselves to that until they get trained to believe that what they do and their persona and their ranking in some kind of a system matters to them and to anything real. What was not from the beginning is not so, in a sense of what is real and dependable. What was from the beginning is so, and that is men are free and sovereigns.